have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero? The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, May 7th, 2019, getting into the week here. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And Sam is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. Today, of course, is the anniversary of the sinking of the Lusitania, which was the event that catapulted the United States into the First World War. And like so many of these other events, turned out to be not quite what we were told it was. The official story was that the Lusitania was an innocent passenger ship that was just on its way from New York to Great Britain, and those evil, gosh darn Germans just sank it with a U-boat. But the history has revealed the Lusitania was actually smuggling weapons from the United States to Great Britain. Even though the United States was officially neutral in the conflict at the time, the U.S. was sending weapons to Great Britain. And as a matter of fact, the German embassy in New York had actually taken out ads in the New York newspapers warning people not to take passage on the Lusitania because since it was known to be carrying weapons, it was a legitimate target of war. So the Lusitania was basically sent off to an area off the coast of Ireland without any escorts, an area known to be swarming with U-boats. And yes, it got sunk, and that was what got us into World War I. So another big lie from history. Okay, let's get into our war zones here because there seem to be enough of them. Turning to Iran, everybody's talking about this announcement by Bolton of the deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln to the Middle East to send a clear message to Tehran. And apparently, Acting Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan has confirmed Bolton's statement that the Abraham Lincoln and a bomber task force of 4 B-52s are being sent to the U.S. Central Command region to send the message to Tehran. Now, Iran is saying this is basically just a gauche psych war attempt. Iran's Supreme National Security Council spokesman Kaivan Khosravi basically said that the Abraham Lincoln had actually entered the Mediterranean 21 days ago. So this is not a new deployment here. And Bolton's statement is a clumsy use of an out-of-date event for psychological warfare. Well, that does put a whole new cast on it if the Abraham Lincoln was already over there. Another story that's coming on out from Sputnik News is the U.S. aircraft carrier strike group deployment near Iran is a bluff. And it's unlikely to result in a direct military confrontation between the two countries. This according to experts quoted by Sputnik. I wouldn't be sure about that. It does feel like they want to get the war with Iran going at this point and may use a false flag to do it. So Bolton said that Washington is not seeking war with Iran, but was fully prepared to respond to any attack, whether by proxy, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or regular Iranian forces. Well, see, that proxy group, that's where it gets kind of tricky, because somebody could carry out an attack and say, oh my goodness, they were working on behalf of Iran. Now, a top Russian member of their parliament is saying that it does appear an escalation in the U.S. conflict with Iran is about to happen. And this is Leonid Slutsky, and he says we can't be idle. We must beat the alarm and take a stand against such behavior from Washington in all international organizations, especially in BRICS. Now, there's a very subtle message there, because Russia understands this is all about economics. It's all about oil and oil currencies. Okay. So apparently, as I mentioned before, 4 B-52s are deploying to the Middle East. 2 of the bombers are expected to leave next Tuesday from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, arriving at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar on Wednesday. Okay. Now, here's another story that reinforces something we were told yesterday. This is from Russia Today. The U.S. is acting on a vague, emphasis on vague, Mossad tip-off. And apparently, Israeli National Security Council Chief Mir Ben-Shabbat passed along a warning to U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. And the information Bolton received was that the attack from Iran could hit a U.S. target in the Persian Gulf, or maybe Saudi Arabia, or maybe the United Arab Emirates. But trust us, we know it's coming. We know it's coming. Iran's going to get you. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Another story, this one is out of Mondoweiss, basically talking about why the new emphasis on Iran. Why is Iran being squeezed? Well, it's because Israel wants it. I mean, if you really look at it right now, I mean, an economic war against Iran could eventually lead to a shooting war and trigger a global recession. Now, Iran is no danger to U.S. interests anywhere. Tehran is not threatening American shipping. They're not threatening the military bases. Its allies, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, have not targeted U.S. civilians or soldiers for years. And of course, Iran itself has not initiated a war of conquest against another nation in over 200 years, and certainly not since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. So the U.S. is basically squeezing Iran. Trump is squeezing Iran because that's what Netanyahu wants. Netanyahu is in a de facto alliance with Saudi Arabia. He's got warm relations with the other Gulf states and with the Abdel Fattah el-Sisi dictatorship in Egypt. Iran is the only regional power that is deterring Netanyahu from completely annexing the West Bank, and Iran is also a supporter of Hamas. So that's what's going down there. Okay, yesterday, pardon me, we had somebody who called on in regarding how the media had shown a 4-year-old video of missiles in Ukraine and claimed it was evidence of Hamas rocket launches against Israel. And I said I hadn't seen the video. There might be a benign explanation for it. It may have just been nobody got actual video of the missiles, and they just went to the stockroom. It turns out that's not where it come from. Apparently the video was tweeted by a Trump aide. Trump's senior campaign advisor posted this 4-year-old video of military action in Ukraine and claimed it was evidence of Hamas rocket launches against Israel. This is from Katrina Pearson. And so that has sparked a little bit of outrage, especially when you consider Donald Trump's constant harangue about fake news, and then to see his senior campaign advisor tweet this out. It's pretty bad. Apparently, Pearson's goal was to attack Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who was defending the Palestinians during this confrontation with Israel, and she was immediately slammed online for spearheading a false narrative, as well she should be. And that's something all of you ought to be doing. When you see a false narrative anywhere, you get out there and you scream about it. We need the corporate media and we need the politicians to know we know they are lying. We need to break their confidence that they can lie to us successfully. Now, Iran is talking about unveiling countermeasures in response to the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran deal. And they're going to announce the plan tomorrow, which marks the first anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from the nuclear deal. Pardon me. And, of course, Trump withdrew from the deal in May of 2018, reached between Iran and the P5+1 group of countries, the U.S., Britain, France, Russia, and China, plus Germany. And he also decided to reimpose unilateral sanctions against Iran. Now, under the Iran deal, Iran put limits on its nuclear program in exchange for the removal of nuclear-related sanctions. And, of course, the sanctions are back. Now, Iran has been playing by the deal since then, trying to keep to the agreement with the other signatories to it, but there are indications they may be thinking about simply pulling out of the deal themselves. And partly it's because of Washington's increasing pressure on Europe to stop doing business with Iran, to basically get them out of the deal. So the European Union is not capable of facing down U.S. sanctions, and while there have been some meager efforts, EU initiatives to salvage the deal have been really too little too late. And Iran is thinking about simply pulling out of the deal and going back to making their own reactor fuel and going back to doing whatever it was they were doing. And again, even before the deal was made, international inspectors had not found any evidence of weapons development. It was like Saddam's nuclear weapons. They just aren't there. It's just more lies to get you to go along with this belligerence against a foreign country. Now, over in Russia, they're vowing to expand their cooperation with Iran, including in the field of peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov basically said no threat of new sanctions will stop our legitimate and mutually beneficial cooperation with Iran. And referring to the U.S. sanctions, Ryabkov said it is clear that over this period there has been a serious adaptation to this illegal trick by the United States. He's certainly right about that one. Now, if memory serves me correct, Russia has already built one nuclear power station in Iran, and they're starting on a second one, because Iran understands the oil is not going to last forever, and they make more money selling the oil than burning it in their own power plants. So, and again, under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which both the United States and Iran have signed and ratified, Iran is allowed peaceful nuclear technology, nuclear power plants, nuclear medicine, industrial destaticers, anything that doesn't go bang, Iran is allowed to have. And more importantly, under the terms of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the United States is obligated to help Iran build peaceful nuclear facilities, which would be a really good way of making sure there isn't a bomb factory hidden underneath them the way Israel has underneath Dimona. All right, shifting on over to Syria. Apparently, we mentioned this yesterday. Russia's Hmeimim Air Base came under attack. 36 missiles were fired at them, and they were successfully repelled by the air defense system. And apparently the militants had used an unmanned aerial vehicle to direct their fire. The shelling came from the Idlib de-escalation zone, which included the militant-held parts of Latakia, Idlib, Hama, and Aleppo provinces. And the Russian aerospace forces carried out strikes on the militant positions in response to the attack. Pardon me. Okay, so that is still going on. Article out of Zero Hedge. The final showdown is on the horizon in Idlib as Russia ramps up airstrikes following the rocket attacks. And Syria's kind of been fading out of the headlines between Iran and Venezuela. But it looks like there could be a major escalation over Idlib. The last time there was a large Syrian-Russian joint force put together to retake the al-Qaeda-held province in the country's northwest, the United States threatened major military response, also citing that even should so much as an accusation of chemical weapons usage surface, U.S. strikes would ensue. So the United States has not given up in Syria. They don't want to lose any one of these wars. I mean, they're looking to exit Afghanistan gracefully, but the United States can't be seen to lose any of these wars, or the momentum of the entire war agenda falls apart. Over in Gaza, the ceasefire that was declared early Monday appears to be holding, at least for the moment, but unless there's a meaningful change to the way Israel treats Gaza, unless there's an end, or at least a reduction to this air, land, and sea blockade that's gone on for 12 years now, it's only a matter of time before the fighting resumes. Up in Ukraine, their army has opened fire on a bus carrying workers from the Donetsk water treatment plant. And apparently this bus was attacked with grenade launchers by Ukrainian armed formations. Nobody was hurt, but I'm sure they got a good scare out of that. It's a water treatment plant. That's not militarily valuable, I don't think. It really isn't here. And again, with the Russia bashing, over in Time magazine, there was an article by the former NATO commander James Stavridis, and he's basically saying the U.S. is too weak on Russia in the wake of Mueller's report, which said Russia was not colluding with Donald Trump. But this James Stavridis is saying that it's time to ban Russians from the United States. It's time to sanction their sports teams. It's time to target President Putin himself. Well, James, here's your rifle. Here's your parachute. Go have fun. Down in Venezuela, support for Guaido is weakening. The Venezuelans are getting tired of the violent clashes. And apparently there was, after this last week of street demonstrations, 4 were left dead, hundreds injured. And the Venezuelan people are just tired of it. And apparently on Saturday, when Guaido called for another day of street protests, not that many people showed up. And even Guaido's supporters were slamming him on Twitter for offering up the Venezuelan people as cannon fodder. So Guaido, probably sensing the waning support for his effort, did that BBC interview yesterday where he said he was considering asking the U.S. for support in the form of a boots-on-the-ground military intervention. So here we have a guy who didn't even run in last year's presidential election, just gets up in January, declares himself the interim president, and now is demanding that the U.S. military come on in and kick out the existing government. It's pretty obvious and pretty heavy-handed. Meanwhile, Guaido is blaming his own coup backers for failing to follow through in his latest effort to overthrow Maduro's government. He's out there saying there's still hope. Guaido said there are people who fail to follow through, but it doesn't mean they won't do it soon. So things are happening there. Now, Apparently, today, Vice President Mike Pence is set to offer new incentives to Venezuela's military to turn on President Maduro. And in this speech to the American Society at the U.S. Department of State, Pence will warn that Washington could soon sanction 25 additional magistrates on the Venezuelan Supreme Court. All right, we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're getting back to the news here. Apparently, there is a shooting incident at a school in Colorado. No details on that available at this time. Okay, so let's get on back here. Venezuela. Apparently, Lavrov and Mike Pompeo had their little meeting. And Lavrov is saying that A reckless military solution in Venezuela isn't wanted even by Washington. Well, certainly by much of Washington. We know that Trump doesn't think it's a good idea. The Pentagon doesn't think it's a good idea. John Bolton, of course, thinks it's really great, and so does Mike Pompeo. But again, this is another one of these U.S. regime change operations. And if you look at all the regime change operations since the end of World War II, the United States government is only batting 500. They only succeed half the time. And this may be one of those failures. Meanwhile, down in Venezuela, and the reason why they may be sanctioning the Supreme Court, apparently Venezuela Supreme Court has opened a criminal action against 7 opposition politicians for alleged treason and rebellion. The politicians Henry Ramos Alop, Luis Florido, Marianela Magallanes, Jose Simon Calzadilla, Americo de Grazia, and Richard Blanco, as well as Andre Velasquez, were accused by the Attorney General for the crimes of treason, conspiracy, instigation of insurrection, military rebellion, conspiracy to commit a crime, usurpation of functions, and public incitement to disobedience. Now, some of these people stood right beside Juan Guaido during the failed military coup on the 30th of April outside the Generalissimo Francisco de Miranda Air Base. Now, I notice that Maduro is still keeping hands off Guaido himself, but that can't last for very, very long. Meanwhile, the United States is preparing even more sanctions against Russia and Cuba over their supposed support of Maduro. You get a sanction, and you get a sanction, and you get a sanction. Over in North Korea, their 50 missing submarines have now reappeared. Apparently, dozens of their submarines disappeared from military radar, South Korea's military radar, on Monday, and now they have been spotted returning to their bases. So it looks to me like North Korea was having some kind of an exercise. South Korea, of course, concerned that there might be an attack. But apparently about 70% of North Korea's known submarine fleet had left their home ports and could not be located. Well, that's what submarines are supposed to do. And throwing his weight around even more and sort of reinforcing that article yesterday that we need a new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo is now saying that Canada's claim to the Northwest Passage is illegitimate. And Canadian experts are saying the speech is provocative. Yes, it is. And also inaccurate. So Pompeo was giving a speech to the Arctic Council over in Finland, in which he also warned against China's increased Arctic presence, saying it threatens North American security and could be harmful to the environment. Well, you want to talk about harm to the environment? What about all these bombs that are being dropped all over the place? What about all the depleted uranium? So Pompeo is out there warning not just China, but Russia to, quote, respect our interests, end quote, in the Arctic or face the consequences. So it looks like the Arctic region is going to be the next frontier for competition between the U.S., Russia, and China. And part of it, of course, is access to the Northwest Passage, assuming that the global warming people are right and the Arctic ice is going to continue to melt. But the other part of it is it's thought there's a lot of oil down there on the abyssal plain. It's going to be very hard to get at it. There's a lot of oil down there. But Pompeo was out there saying that the Arctic seaways could become the 21st century Suez and Panama canals. So he's talking about those transit points. Well, if you look at the Panama canals and the Suez canals, they're pretty much shared by everybody. And that's the way that it should be. So why not just say, yes, we're going to use that Northwest Passage, and so can China, and so can Russia. I think it's about, again, restricting their ability to import goods to the United States. Okay. Over in Great Britain, the Royal Navy is starting to build littoral strike groups with which to help the United States basically threaten the third world. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Hey, and aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're talking about how the Royal Navy has started building littoral strike groups to basically ally with the United States to basically go in and threaten other countries. Now, most countries have coastal navies for defense against attack from the sea. A lot of countries also have blue water navies to control and contest the sea lanes of communication. But apparently the U.S. and Great Britain are now building a third navy specifically designed to operate in the coastal zones of other nations. Now, so far, at least for the United States, it hasn't worked out too well because both the Freedom and the Independence class littoral combat ships that are designed to basically intrude into other people's coastal waters and project power have not worked out all that well. In fact, the Navy is basically going to go back and start from scratch to rebuild them. But hey, it's not like they're spending their own money. What can I tell you? This one caught me a rather interesting little development here. The United States Army has designed a new service uniform. And what they did is they went back to World War II. And so the new uniform for the United States Army looks almost exactly like the old green gabardine wool field coat and khaki trousers that officers wore in World War II. And I think the idea is they're trying to engage the symbolism. You know, the last time the nation celebrated total victory in a major war. So, yeah, a little bit of propaganda for those of us seeing those uniforms who are old enough to remember what they are, and a morale boost for those people wearing those uniforms. Certainly look a lot better than those camouflage BDUs here. All right, let's turn to the domestic politics here. And quick little update from that school shooting over in Colorado. 2 people have been injured, 2 suspects are in custody. Right now, there is a battle within our political system over the narrative, which is shifting away from Trump-Russia collusion and to, was there an abuse of power by the Obama administration? And it is a very heavy fight. And a lot of it is focused on the issue of spying. And the CIA's ex-counterintelligence chief is saying, yeah, it was spying. James Olson was a 30-year agency veteran. He served under 6 presidents. And he says the FBI's use of confidential human informants to obtain information from Trump campaign officials under false pretenses is straight up spying. Now, the Democrats and the Hillary supporters and Obama supporters are out there trying to say, no, it wasn't really spying. You know, it was just opposition research, except that they were pushing this whole Russia thing. And isn't it interesting how we've gone from the Democrats and the corporate media denying that the Trump campaign was spied on and making fun of everybody who suggested it, to now saying, yeah, the campaign was spied on, but it was a good thing. It was a really good thing. We were preventing Russian interference in the 2016 election. And there is no evidence that Russia had any kind of a significant influence in the 2016 election. The interference, the rigging, was coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. Just ask Bernie Sanders about that. Okay, yesterday we talked about how Ron Paul has said that of all the Democrats currently lined up for the primary sideshow, that he likes Tulsi Gabbard the best, mostly because of her very strong anti-war view. And today we have this other article that came on out from Russia Today saying Tulsi Gabbard has proved she's ready for America. Is America ready for her? And in this article, they're saying that the most important thing about her campaign is that she's trying to get America to face up to the reality of what's going on. So she's come out with this constant indictment of U.S. militarism, and she's making a valid point that Washington's obscenely inflated defense budget and its addiction to regime change wars, military interventions, and the subversion of sovereign governments in pursuit of the full spectrum dominance that lies at the heart of the malignant creeds of neoconservatism and liberal interventionism is harming rather than protecting the interests of the American people, and she is absolutely right about that. Going all the way back to Operation Desert Storm, we have seen the quality of life in this country deteriorate. We've seen our economy descend into a wartime economy. The infrastructure is being neglected. I mean, the other day there was this major traffic jam on this island, and it turns out literally one of the expansion joints in the H1 freeway literally popped out of the cement. Now, for Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who are both declared socialists, the latest poll is showing that only 10% of Americans want socialism. I think we want to go back to old-style capitalism. What we've got now, of course, isn't capitalism, it's fascism. But I think we want to go back to the sort of capitalism that made Americans great, that made the American lifestyle the envy of the rest of the world. And we've lost that one. Now we live in this economy where the wealth flows up to the top and just stays there. Okay. The other day we were talking about how CNN, along with MSNBC, had taken a major ratings hit following the release of the Mueller report, because CNN had just been out there for 2+ years. Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion. And the American people got a wake-up call. Gee, they've been lying to us all the time. And so CNN has now been forced to start letting people go. Now, they're not calling it layoffs. What they've done is they've started a company-wide restructuring in which they're offering voluntary buyouts of contracts to employees, and so far around 100 employees have accepted the voluntary buyout offers. So they're out there trying to put a positive face on it, but the reality is they've lost their audience. And with the loss of their audience, they've lost their ad revenues. Now, CNN is currently owned by AT&T, and I'm sure AT&T is tired of all the red ink. But at some point, yeah, corporate media is in a decline. They're reacting to it by going on the warpath against the independent media. But people generally don't like liars. People instinctively want the truth. And they're going to go where they can find the truth, find good analysis. And they haven't been getting that at CNN and MSNBC. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Art off the grid, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I'm kind of curious. First of all, did you hear about, and possibly did you manage to get a copy of the document that the government pulled from the website after they got some blowback on it about their interventions in Venezuela?
I didn't get a copy of it. I saw part of it before it was pulled. But yeah, it's the blueprint for what's been going on in Venezuela.
Okay, well, I was kind of curious. I mean, if you want a copy of it, I mean, I actually downloaded a full copy. I managed to get a copy of it. So if you want, I can send it to you.
Please do.
I'm kind of, from what you've seen, now, I haven't read the whole thing, but I read enough of it to kind of get an idea of where they were going here. And I'm kind of curious, do you see any correlation between this and what we saw back in, what was it, 1952 with Operation Ajax?
Well, yeah, it's basically the same pattern. I mean, they're refining it, but it's basically the same regime change playbook that they've been following since the end of World War II.
kind of curious if maybe it was just me, but as I was reading it, that was the only thing I could think of was, this is like almost identical in many respects to Operation Ajax, which, here's what I wish I could actually talk to these people in Washington, because my question to them would be, how would you feel if, say, Germany or China or whoever would come in and try to flip the government here in their favor? How would you feel about that? And give them something to think about, because, as far as I'm concerned, they need to be more worried about cleaning up the mess that we've got here rather than trying to make a mess in some other country. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I mean, obviously, our government is perfectly okay with Israel coming on in here and subverting our government. And I think one of the reasons why the U.S. government's policy is to go mess with the rest of the world right now is knowing they can't fix the problems here. It's past the point of no return. Our economy is hopelessly in debt and about to collapse. We've lost our manufacturing. Nobody wants our GMO agriculture. The country is in serious shape. It's an empire on the verge of collapse. And so going on out and trying to reestablish dollar hegemonic domination of the rest of the world's economy, off of which to make a profit, is kind of their last desperate gasp. And I think a lot of countries are sort of pulling back and saying it's only a matter of time when it's all going to fall apart like the old Soviet Union. Okay, so thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Last week, there was this big stink over the Poynter Institute for Media Studies, which is this nonprofit journalism and research organization. And amazingly enough, in their About page, they say they're dedicated to free and open reporting. And yet they published a list of 500 supposedly unreliable news websites. And it turned out the list, which included many conservative news and think tanks websites, turned out to be unreliable, and Poynter retracted it. Okay? It now turns out that Poynter got the list from somebody over at the Southern Poverty Law Center, which likes to make up these lists and scream at people, don't read these websites. That probably explains why whatreallyhappened.com was on there as well. So Poynter confirmed that the author of their list, Barrett Golding, is a freelancer, and Golding's LinkedIn account lists him as a freelance podcast producer for the Southern Poverty Law Center. So that was the conduit where they could go on out and say, don't pay attention to these websites. So Poynter has retracted the website. I think it has the banned in Boston effect. I think most Americans are smart enough to realize that, as they like to say over at InfoWars, there is a war on for your mind. And I think the American people really have had a wake-up call, a couple of wake-up calls. First of all, with the collapse of the Trump-Russia collusion story, and of course the lie about Saddam's nuclear weapons. And I think most Americans really are trying to take the effort to find out what's really going on before we wind up in a major war. Okay, let's talk about the economic news here a little bit. It was a bad day on the Dow. It ended just slightly above negative 500. And it shocked a lot of people because the market started down yesterday but ended almost at parity. And it was thought, well, okay, the talk about Trump's China tariffs shook up the market, but it's over and done with. But apparently, no, with confirmation that the tariffs are going to go forward on Friday, it sent global markets into a plunge. And they're trying to blame China on it. They're saying that progress was made on the trade deal, but in the past week, China has reneged on some of their promises. In other words, they're saying it's an erosion of commitments by China. In other words, China just didn't actually do anything. They just backed up and said, we're not really happy about that. Because it's, you know, this whole trade deal, it's not for China's benefit. It's for the U.S. benefit. And the problem with having a trade war with China is, as I said before, we're not suited to take advantage of it. Our manufacturing has come back by microscopic amounts. We don't have product to sell. That's really where the issue comes from. Now, Steve Bannon came on out in an article saying that we're already at an economic war with China and it's futile to compromise. And he was out there saying that getting tough with China to bring the manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. was the linchpin of President Trump's electoral march through the Rust Belt during his 2016 victory. Today, the goal of the radical cadre running China, the Chinese government, is to be a global hegemonic power, and by golly, that's our job. Well, I don't really think it's as much China, or for that matter, Russia, growing in power and influence. I think it's a relative view. The U.S. is in decline. It's really what's going on here. And I hope they're just not thinking that dragging the rest of the world down with them is a solution. We've got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Don't regret growing old. It's a privilege denied to many. Heart disease is taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix a problem. Don't wait until it's too late. call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovice.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about the trade war with China and Steve Bannon's article saying that what's really going on is China wants to be a dominant global player. Well, I'm sure that's true of any large successful nation, but I don't know that it's so much that China wants to displace the United States, or for that matter, Russia wants to displace the United States. They're seeing a vacuum form in terms of our economics around the globe. And like anybody else, they're going to rush in to fill it. Now, China's One Belt, One Road project was brilliant. And it is going to dramatically change the way products move across Asia and Europe. And that's why the United States is in a little bit of a tizzy right now. Okay, we're going to go to the phones here to Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I just want to make a quick comment. Do you think that the Federal Reserve Bank will ever be abolished? And if so, how?
Well, no, I don't think it will, because the people behind all of these private central banks have a lock on pretty much every government on the planet. And the private central banks, of course, do not serve the people. They do not serve the nation. They serve themselves. And I mean, they have basically sucked trillions of dollars of wealth out of the pockets of people whose labor created that wealth. And they did it all with ink, paper, and numbers in a computer. And the politicians are perfectly okay with that for two reasons. One, these private central banks are tremendous campaign donors every election cycle. But more importantly, having this bank that can literally create the money out of thin air is what allows the government to spend way beyond its means. And politicians love that. Because it means they can spend money into areas of their constituency to literally make themselves look good and win re-election. It's a very corrupted system. The fact of the matter is, Congress has the authority to revoke the charter of the Federal Reserve at any time, but I don't see them doing it. The days when we had courageous leaders like Andrew Jackson seem to be gone. And if you read my article, All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, you'll see that we have had leaders who tried to stand up to the fraud of the Federal Reserve System, and they paid a heavy price for it.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open again. Over in London, the gold fix, if you will, is being shaken. Apparently, the French bank Société Générale, SocGen, has resigned as a market maker for gold and silver, and this is continuing an exodus from the London bullion markets that included such former heavyweight bullion banks as Barclays, Deutsche Bank, Mitsui, and Credit Suisse. Now, oh, there's the music. We've got to take a break for station identification, and we will be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about the economic news now. We're talking about the London gold fix. It's come under a lot of criticism. And because of that, basically 60% of the former participants in that London gold fix have now stepped back because of all the scandals that is coming out of the gold fix, mostly about the manipulation of gold prices with the paper gold and paper silver markets. So if that really is in decline, we might see the metals prices break free and start to float up to where they should be. Because pretty much everybody who knows the metals markets is saying the metals should be a lot higher than they are right now. Okay. Another little article, this one over from Fort Worth. BRICS challenges dollar, and Russia is defying the U.S. sanctions. They certainly are with Iran. And it's increasing the export of rubles to the BRICS countries. So they're de-emphasizing dollar payments and they're going with ruble payments, and the other countries are going along with it. And that, of course, is one of the reasons the United States government is in such a panic. See, at the end of World War II, the U.S. set up this imperial system where all the world's economies went through the U.S. dollar. And that gave the U.S. government control over those economies. It made them a lot of money. It was quite advantageous for a lot of reasons. In fact, that whole Bretton Woods Agreement was half the reason for the boom times of the 1950s. The other half, of course, being that the United States was the only country to come out of World War II with its industrial base still pretty much intact. And so for a long while, everybody had to come to the United States to buy what they needed. As they rebuilt their economies, they built their infrastructure, they had to get machine tools, they'd go to the United States. They had to get ball bearings, they'd go to the United States. And it was a very, very good time. And unfortunately, as these other countries rebuilt their economies, they stopped being as dependent on the U.S. manufacturers. And for a while, the U.S. manufacturers were able to compete by building the best quality products. And so people around the world would look at, well, here's this thing built in the United States and it's really good, a little more expensive. And then there's this that's built over here that's not as nice. And they would buy American. It was a status symbol to own things from America, especially cars. Unfortunately, those days are pretty much gone now. Over in Turkey, they have a massive debt problem, but then show me a nation that doesn't. The lira is plummeting, and apparently there is concern that Turkey has the potential to inflict significant damage elsewhere, along with key economies in the Eurozone. And a lot of people are starting to draw parallels between the situation in Turkey, a heavily indebted nation with a plummeting currency that descends into a severe recession, and it gets bailed out, like Greece. The National Association of Realtors is reporting, along with the Census Bureau, that on a seasonally adjusted annualized rate basis, which means they're tinkering with the numbers, actual home sales are down. And that's not good. We were talking yesterday about reasons to believe the economy is not doing all that well. And one of them is mortgage applications are down. People are just staying in their homes. They're not moving to newer homes. Everyone's just kind of hunkering down. But the reality here right now is Trump is out there saying it's a surging economy, it's a booming economy, and there's been a tiny uptick in wages, but it's completely overshadowed by the fact that Americans are squeezed by debt. They're facing rising prices for medical care, child care, housing, food, utilities. The net result is that Americans are still sinking deeper and deeper into this economy. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones here. Peter in California. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I've called in before and talked about something called the Mackinder theory, and I know that you have seen it and understand what it's called, the Mackinder heartland geostrategic theory.
Yes.
That whoever controls basically the heartland of the Eurasian landmass will control the world. And there's a couple of the points that I see that I'd like people to at least start thinking about, or tell me that I'm full of crap if they don't. But I see this as the fall. Your supposition that this is China and Russia filling a vacuum, I believe that's more correct than incorrect. And like the fall of the Roman Empire, when everything, all the treaty systems, the financial systems, everything, the trade routes, everything was impacted by that. They fell into kind of a squabbling dark age for a long time, and warlords, and until really the rise of the nation state later on. But the point I want to make also is one of the reasons that Britain and the West and the United States even went to war, but mostly Britain with Germany in World War I, is that Germany started to actually build battleships and build a fleet to rival Britain's preeminence on the sea. And Britain had a far-flung empire that had to be connected by maritime routes and so on, and that posed a real threat to Britain. I would tell you that another part of this destabilization is the Silk Road thing, which goes along with the Mackinder theory, that it actually starts to devalue the utility of naval and maritime force. That what they call the world, the island, which is North to South America, which cannot be connected by land, but Africa, Asia, and Europe can by railroads, and it makes it more important, land power more important, treaties more important, and instead of challenging us for naval superiority, although in reality we're being challenged there as well.
Yes.
But it's that they're doing it slowly, because if you've got the Silk Road going, there's an implicit diplomacy and acquiescence to trade and rule and so on and so forth that comes with that circumvents the whole maritime thing. That you build it slowly and at any rate, our complete security system, financial system, trade system even our system of political orthodoxy is being challenged by
Yes.
all this, and it's really, really fundamental. And you've heard and you've talked about how managing this decline is important, but we're not managing it. We're resisting it foolishly and speeding it up with these sanctions and with these continual wars and all that. But I just, what do you think about that, Mike?
No, it makes a great deal of sense. There's no question that when the One Belt, One Road system comes online, it's going to allow China to exert a tremendous amount of influence over all of Asia and into Europe itself. And that, of course, is probably part of what the U.S. is concerned about China's rising dominance in the globe. But China's dominance is not being done militarily, it's being done economically. They invested in this new infrastructure where the U.S. could not. And the reality is that because the United States doesn't physically connect with Asia, unless they build a bridge across the Bering Straits, the U.S. is going to be left out on this. And the U.S. is going to still be dependent on commercial shipping, which is apparently going to be more expensive than using the One Belt, One Road system, even though the One Belt, One Road has maritime components to it, but they're short distance only from the ends, from the railheads. So yeah, it is. I think your theory is correct that China's control over the Central Asian region is going to allow it to exert a tremendous amount of control over the rest of the world.
And Mike, I think that throws a little more light onto Venezuela from the point of what we're talking about with the largest oil reserves, because with the BRICS nations, with Russia, China, and Iran, is also India. That's already pretty much the Mackinder theory right there.
Yes.
But for something as crucial as oil, it really now it puts Chinese or Russian land-powered divisions right on the Persian Gulf, if necessary. They don't have to go through the whole Strait of Majorca and the Strait of Hormuz. They can go directly there by rail, or will shortly, and which means that we'll be militarily checkmated out of there in short order. Really, we kind of are now.
Yes.
I
think Syria kind of proved that.
Yeah, and the fact that they can close the Straits of Hormuz, there's really not much we could do about it. But the Chinese could get divisions there by rail or road, and there's not much we could do about that either. But that really makes Venezuela's largest proven oil reserves like crucial for us to be able to hang on to anything at all.
Well, maybe, but I mean, we know Venezuela has all that oil, but it's not like the United States does not. And there has been a lot of oil development over the last several years, some of it not well done, like the Deepwater Horizon. Yesterday, we were talking about how the Trump administration has relaxed safety requirements in order to allow drillers to basically drill faster, harder, and deeper to try and get that oil. I think the issue of Venezuela, again, is more about regional dominance in this hemisphere and about making sure that Venezuela's oil is sold only for the U.S. dollar, because that has been something that has rankled the U.S. government going all the way back to Hugo Chavez.
And I agree with that completely, Mike. But also, I think that this is an added thing. The fact that we see in the very near future where we will be militarily paced out of the Persian Gulf area for oil, or could be. And so, which makes us being able to dominate Venezuela in the eyes of the neocons especially, crucial.
Yeah.
Mike, there's a guy named Greg Palast.
Yes.
Who did a very good journalist who did one of those Scott Horton interviews over the weekend. It's up on his site right now, where he talks about the Deepwater Horizon and how previous to the Deepwater Horizon by about a year or 2 or 3. The exact same thing happened to British Petroleum in Azerbaijan that polluted the entire Caspian Sea, and British Petroleum was able, with their buying the media and buying on Google and everything else, to completely keep that from Western eyes and even U.S. congressional eyes about oversight of the safety oversight. Same type of wells. The preventers say the same thing happened, only they succeeded in keeping that from any sort of safety oversight in the United States.
Well, I'm not sure that the U.S. would have claimed to have jurisdiction in Azerbaijan anyway, but you're right. There have been a lot of horrendous oil spills, and apparently there was another blown-out well in the Gulf of Mexico that was discovered that it was leaking back during the Deepwater Horizon disaster. It's still leaking today. They haven't been able to do anything about it.
It's unbelievable, really, Mike.
It really is. And what's really amazing is you see all these people out there screaming about the environment and global warming and plastic bags and everything. But when you look at these oil disasters or these nuclear disasters or the environmental destruction caused by wars, their lips are sealed.
Well, like the General Electric, MSNBC, Fukushima. Nobody talks about that, right?
Correct.
And then how about Obama, Mr. Global warming and all that kind of stuff. Remember when he took his kids and claimed they were swimming in the Gulf and that everything had just gone away? It went away.
And it turned out they were actually swimming in a pool.
They were swimming in a pool with photoshopped, and it was a lie. And, of course, the whole thing about it disappearing was a lie, too. And we are really in bad shape.
Yeah, that oil is still down there at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. That corrects it, does not make it go away. It simply changes the molecular structure so it becomes denser than water and sinks out of sight. But it's still down there on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, which means any bottom-dwelling fish are really unsuitable for eating.
And Mike, notice how the environmentalists were almost completely silent in attacking Obama on that.
Yes.
On that huge lie. The complete destruction of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, too, really.
Yes.
They gave him a pass.
Yep, they did. They absolutely did. All right. Well, listen, Peter, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. And we're going to take another phone call from Gil in Arizona. Aloha, Gil. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, long-time listener, and hopefully a while old man on Social Security. But anyway, most amazing thing. Before I tuned you in, I don't know if you've got the two pictures I sent you of my Wi-Fi radio. We listen on the Wi-Fi radio. And I got a message when I turned the radio on that I need to update the radio since it's been changed. So, of course, I did update it. And I also, one of my presets is Sputnik radio. There's a little screen on the Wi-Fi radio that shows you the station and the name of the program. And it shows a picture of Putin with a rainbow behind him, the homosexual rainbow, and it shows Putin with lipstick. It looks like he came out of a morgue. This little image is now permanently, when I tune into Sputnik News, on there. Secondly, I had a heck of a time finding you guys because you're no longer listed under talk radio. You're listed under all kinds of things I've got to go through, but I hope you get my link to that screenshot of my radio. You wouldn't believe what they did to Putin. So if you tune in to Sputnik News on the Wi-Fi radio, you'll get a picture of him with a rainbow flag behind him and lipstick, and it's just awful.
Okay,
so I
now,
think I've been personally hit.
Who made that Wi-Fi radio?
It's a Sangean. And I sent you a picture of the whole radio plus And here is the, it's very short. Here is the message that I got when I, turned my radio on.
For internet radio service, you will need to save your presets again.
Okay, got that. So I had to reset my whole radio, and some of the stations I couldn't find. Can't find InfoWars, fortunately I did finally find Republic, but when you tune in Sputnik, that's the funny, well, it's not even funny. What they did to Putin was just awful.
Yeah, well, it's either the radio manufacturer or somebody along the way, who's definitely, again, messing around with people's right to know information. All right, well, listen, Gil, we got to let you go. I got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
How healthy are your arteries? Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, fingers and or toes often go cold, arms and or legs often go to sleep, sharp diagonal crease in the earlobe, short walks cause cramping or pains in legs. Memory is not as good as it used to be, ankles swell late in the day, chest pain after physical exercise or emotional stress. If you experience even one of these symptoms, your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And a quick little follow-up on that school shooting out in Colorado. There are 2 suspects in custody. First responders are still searching the school for a 3rd suspect. The students have been sent home. and apparently 2 students were injured. No fatalities at this point. No signs of a motive. Little out of control there. Anyway, we're getting on back to the economic news. As you know, there is a huge, huge problem with the student debt crisis. It's $1.6 trillion. And some of these students are coming out, of college. They owe $80,000 to $150,000. And researchers have found that 1 out of every 9 borrowers who owe that much money have contemplated suicide because they're feeling it's too much debt. They can't find a good paying job, and they're feeling hopeless. There was an article the other day about how suicide rates in this country are going up. And at the time, I asked if we were seeing more prescriptions being written for antidepressants. But there's a lot of pressure on the American people right now, especially financially. Especially financially. Over at Great Britain, the government there is confirming that Britain will go ahead and hold European Parliament elections, even though they were supposed to be out of the EU at this point. And David Lidington is saying there would not be enough time to complete the ratification of Brexit before the 23rd of May. So Great Britain is still part of the EU, and I'm sure the British people are very unhappy about that. And you get into a problematic situation where the people are voting for one thing and the government does the opposite. The people vote to get out of the EU, the government tries to get back into the EU even harder. The people vote for no more wars, the government goes for more wars. The people vote for lower taxes, the government raises taxes. After a while, you can see that things are going to be at loggerheads. Over in Spain, pardon me, 3 Madrid courts ruled yesterday to allow former Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont, as well as 2 members of his government, to run in the upcoming European Parliament elections. This overturned the Spanish election authorities' decision that they could not be allowed to run. So that'll make it interesting events over there. Okay, let's talk about Boeing. Boeing is in serious trouble, not just economically, but reputationally as well. And Boeing is now admitting that they knew there was an issue with the 737 MAX a year before the first of the 2 deadly crashes, and really didn't do anything about it. In fact, they weren't even that forthcoming after the first crash. I guess they thought it was one time only, an anomaly. They weren't more forthcoming until the second crash here. But apparently, the device linked to the 737 MAX software, the angle of attack sensor, okay, apparently has been flagged 216 times to the Federal Aviation Administration. And former Boeing, apparently, Boeing did not flight test a scenario in which that sensor malfunctioned. Now, former Boeing engineers and aviation analysts have criticized Boeing's original software design for relying on data from a single angle of attack sensor, claiming that those devices are vulnerable to defects. For one thing, they're vulnerable to foreign object damage. They're on the outside of the aircraft. They can get hit by dust and debris. So the FAA has received at least 216 reports of angle of attack sensors failing or having to be repaired, replaced, or adjusted since 2004. Okay, we're going to start with a phone call. Ken in New York. And Ken, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
I have a maybe an answer about the Wi-Fi problem the other caller was talking about. I did some research a while back. John was interested in getting a Wi-Fi radio, and it may not be the manufacturer. It seems like these various kinds of Wi-Fi radios rely on a chipset by a third party, and the third party company is responsible for updating the databases.
Well, again, it's a very underhanded thing to do, and these days I'm really leery about software updates for anything, especially since we had several from Microsoft that actually bricked equipment. And my attitude is, if it's working right now, I don't need the update. Anyway, listen, Ken, got to put you on hold, got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Ken in New York about this issue with Wi-Fi radios putting up strange graphics on their screen. But my understanding, I don't have a Wi-Fi radio, but I would presume that the graphic associated with a given radio channel would be provided by the channel itself. And my next question is it possible somebody at Sputnik Radio thinks this is actually a good image?
Well, I would suggest that it's probably somebody that has something to do with the database, or maybe it's some form of hacking. I don't think Sputnik would do something like, I mean, I really don't know. You know, everything can be spoofed.
True.
I mean, for myself, I when I read about this with Wi-Fi radios, it's nice to have all these wonderful channels. Probably, you know, half of them you'll never listen to, but considering what's being done by, you know, the credit card companies and all the social media companies, where they're trying to poison the well, so to speak, to make it more difficult to either find what you want or put it at the bottom of a list or twist it around. I just use a cheap tablet that I bought on eBay, and I just put the URLs in terms, you know, shortcuts. And I never have any of these problems. I may try to look up Sputnik and see what I get. I tend to think that if you actually had the URL or the MMS address for a player, you may not see this, but I don't know that for sure. But that's all I have for today.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot, Ken. We're going to let you go. It does sound kind of weird. And again, I don't have a Wi-Fi radio, so I don't know. And I don't want a Wi-Fi radio because I got too much stuff here. Anyway. All right. So we're talking about Boeing, and we're talking about the fact that Boeing had been aware that there was a problem with the warning light in the 737 MAX, and they were aware that it wasn't working on most of the planes, and Boeing did not disclose that to the Federal Aviation Administration. They kept it to themselves. That was a bad call. And again, this was a warning light, an angle of attack disagree, that was standard on earlier 737s. It was an option on the MAX. Pardon me. And the airlines, trying to save money, didn't go for it. Bad decision. Boeing's not the only one to have a problem here. There was this footage came out over the last couple of days over at Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport, Sheremetyevo Airport. There was a spectacular crash of a Sukhoi Superjet 100. Apparently, shortly after takeoff, it got hit by lightning. It declared an emergency and turned back, and was attempting to make a landing. And the security footage shows the jet literally bouncing up after touchdown and then back down onto the tarmac, at which point the undercarriage collapsed. And it slammed onto the runway, exploded the engines, ruptured the fuel tanks, and apparently 10 people died. I'm sorry, 41 people died. That one, that's a bad one. What can I tell you? And they're still removing the remains of that aircraft. Okay. This story is very relevant in light of the school shooting that we're hearing in Colorado. And somebody just tweeted me that the number of shooting victims at that school is now up to 7. But as you know, there's all this talk about arming teachers. They just passed a law to that effect in Florida, where teachers who have had a psychological evaluation and gone through training will be allowed to carry guns in classrooms. And the gun grabbers are out there saying, oh, no, this is going to increase gun violence. There'll be accidents. People will be shot. And there was a study done by John Lott over at Crime Prevention Research Center. And basically what they found is that in schools where the teachers are armed, there have been no attempts at mass shootings. Zero, zip, nada. Which, if you think about it, is common sense. Nobody, no matter how many antidepressants they're on, is going to take a gun and go into a school knowing there are guns that are going to be pointed back at you. So that's the actual fact. Arming the teachers will make the schools safer. Okay, let's take another phone call. Jim in New York. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello again, Mark. Yeah, regarding these school shootings, everything you said is 100%. I agree with it. But I've noticed something, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong. I've noticed that invariably these shootings occur in public schools as opposed to parochial schools or charter schools. And I think that a lot of it, of course, these medications have a lot to do with it, but I think a lot of it has to do with the what you call the vast wasteland of current public education in America. You know, of course, the removal of God, the whole list that we all know about, what they're advocating in the schools. And I think that has a lot to do with it. It's just if it doesn't directly affect somebody, the overall atmosphere is conducive for the insertion of those homicidal attitudes in certain people.
Well, yeah, I would say that probably that is a factor. Now, some of these school shootings do appear to be engineered hoaxes to push the gun grabber agenda. I'm not getting that sense for today's shooting out in Colorado. Again, they're not providing any details yet as to what's going on, other than that they have 2 suspects in custody. One they think is still at large in the school he's being searched for, and 7 people have been injured. So that's all we've got right now. But again, we'll see. I mean, certainly the gun grabbers are going to take advantage of this and say, we've got to ban all guns. We've got to ban all guns.
Right. Well, I just want to emphasize that point about the spiritual wasteland, which is conducive to these activities as well.
Yeah, that could be part of it. And again, when I went to school, everybody had guns. There were no school shootings. We took our guns to school with us. We'd put them in the cloakroom because on our way home after school, we'd go through the family fields and chase out the critters. And that was just normal life. Schools had shooting clubs. The government was actually giving surplus World War II and Korean weapons to school shooting clubs. And
when I was in
Go ahead.
When I was in high school in Orlando, Florida, way back in the '60s, I actually bought a 22 caliber single shot bolt action rifle from a fellow student for $8.
Yep. No, it's a completely different world today, and again, I haven't seen indications that this shooting is staged. I'm not going to rule it out, of course, but I think it was a case of like turf warfare, gang warfare among the kids. But again, that study shows that if the teachers are allowed to carry guns, these shootings don't happen.
Yep. And not just to carry. There could be, of course, a good strategically located gun safes with these fingerprint entry into the lock, etc., like that also.
Well, that kind of, I think, defeats the purpose because if somebody's coming into your classroom shooting, you got to have that gun already on your hip.
Right, it could be on your hip, but it could be in the corner, looking like a table for books or something like that. And he could just put his finger up on the lock and open it up. Also, of course, that is a couple of critical seconds. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's a real issue, and of course, you raise the possibility of somebody breaking into that safe and stealing the gun. So I don't think that's a workable idea.
And another thing, you reminded me of something. These things with facial recognition and iris recognition and fingerprint recognition, I'm sure you've heard people discuss the possibility of somebody with malevolent intent cutting off somebody's finger or pulling their eye out to open up a lock.
Yes. Yeah, we've seen that in movies. We've seen that in movies. Yeah. And again, the facial recognition, if you look at how badly it was implemented in the iPhone 10, again, crucial seconds, okay? If you're going to arm the teachers, have them wearing the gun on their belts, ready to use it the instant somebody comes on in.
And there's another thing that could be done also. You just reminded me. I've heard of certain like senior citizens residences where if they have an emergency, they have like a button that rings the resident next door that there's a problem, so they could be on the scene early. And you can have that between classrooms also as an auxiliary to what we're talking about. That it could be like a hidden button that brings the adjacent classroom, et cetera, or something like that.
Well, I imagine that there should be a button that the teacher could hit that would sound the alarm throughout the entire school.
Yeah, that would, of course, be very good. Well, anyhow, that's my 2 cents. Have a nice day.
All right, same to you. Thank you very much here. I just got an email from somebody saying that they have Grace Wi-Fi radio. They pulled up Sputnik News, and they don't have the picture of Putin with the rainbow. So, who knows what's going on? Okay, I'm getting a confirmation now. Yes, at least 7 injured in the Denver school shooting, 2 suspects in custody, and they're still looking for a third. And I'm wondering if they're going to tell us what this was all about. Pardon me. Nope. It's all very hush-hush. Okay, getting on back to computers and stuff when we're dealing with Wi-Fi radio. Let's see. Okay. Somebody else sent me an email saying that the meta images for Wi-Fi radio are embedded in the feed. And they're used to distinguish between channels in the player station index and listing. Yeah, that's what would make sense for me, that the meta images are coming in from the radio source, the channel itself. So I don't know how that picture, I've actually seen that picture of Putin. I think I caught it on Twitter the other day. I'm actually starting to use Twitter again, mostly peeking at stuff. All right, over at Facebook, as you know, they have banned, just this last week, Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, Louis Farrakhan, Milo Yiannopoulos, and others. They're permanently banned. Well, Facebook is now taking it up one more level. According to this article in Natural News, basically Facebook is issuing a gag order on their 2.2 billion users, demanding that they must hate certain selected individuals who have been targeted for Facebook censorship. From this point forward, you're only allowed to post content from people like Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, and so forth, only if you express hatred toward them in your Facebook post. Otherwise, you will be banned too. I think we're looking at the reason why Facebook has started losing money. I mean, they're hugely successful, and now their revenues are in decline. Over at Instagram, they've announced they're going to begin fact-checking and removing memes. Now, of course, Instagram is owned by Facebook, and it's going to use its 52 global fact-checking partners to censor false photos and memes on its platform. This was actually being reported by Pointer, which just had that recent embarrassment with their list of websites not to see. So, memes deemed factually incorrect will no longer appear under tabs where they can be discovered by random users. I'm seeing all this screaming about we've got to punish purveyors of fake news, and yet not a word about corporate media that pushed the Trump-Russia collusion story for 2 years. They're attacking those of us who said we don't think there's anything there. We think it's a nothing burger. If they had found something, it would have been out by now. And we got harassed and we got mocked, got made fun of. Anyway, now down in Texas, little common sense is breaking out there. They're looking at a bill in the Texas Senate that will prevent social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter from censoring users based on their points of view. Supporters are saying it's done to protect the free exchange of ideas. Critics are already out there attacking it, saying it contradicts a federal law that allows social media platforms to regulate their own content. Well, I hope that bill goes through in Texas. It's Senate Bill 2373 by State Senator Brian Hughes, and it would hold social media platforms accountable for restricting users' speech based on personal opinions. And Hughes said that the bill applies to social media platforms that advertise themselves as unbiased but still censors their users. Now, the Senate State Affairs Committee unanimously approved the bill last week. The Texas Senate approved the bill. Oh, that's an update. Apparently, the bill was approved April 25th in an 18-12 vote. It is now headed to the House. So, good. I'd like to see states start doing that. Anyway. Okay. The latest Google Chrome update will protect your privacy. It will stop all advertisers from tracking you, except, of course, from Google, which makes its money tracking you. We've got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins. heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And Laura Loomer is now out there saying she's the most banned woman in the world. And it is an issue. And I hope that Texas law passes. And it, of course, probably is going to get challenged because it's going to be technically very, very difficult for Facebook and Google to remove censorship for one state only. Now, as I mentioned before, Google's new Chrome update is going to stop all advertisers from tracking you. And basically, it's got a new tool that gives you more information about the cookies that have been set on your system. And the new tool will also give you the option to block all third-party tracking from marketing companies that use your information to make their money. And apparently Google has been working on this tool off and on for about 6 years, but recent privacy controversies such as Facebook's infamous Cambridge Analytica scandal have accelerated the development. And the new filters will only be targeted at profit-seeking companies. So cookies that store login information so you don't have to keep re-entering it, that will stay intact. Well, that sounds like a really good thing. But again, Google's own tracking will continue because they do make their money off of that, or much of their money off of that. Pardon me. Over at Microsoft, I think they're seeing the writing on the wall, and they're starting to lean the direction that Apple did some years ago. Apparently, Microsoft is going to ship a full Linux kernel in Windows 10. And a lot of Linux developers have been surprised by Microsoft in recent years. And Microsoft has done things like bring the Bash shell to Windows. Now, if you don't know Linux, the little window that looks into the computer is called a shell. And it goes back to the days where Linux, or Unix originally, basically layered software applications as shells around each other to enhance interoperability. So that shell that you type into is like C shell or so forth, and Bash is one of the most popular. Apparently, they're bringing OpenSSH to Windows 10. That's a tool that you can use to log in securely to a remote computer, and it uses encryption and keys and allows you to basically log in on those remote machines. Apparently, they've included Ubuntu, SUSE Linux, and Fedora in the Windows Store. But apparently, Microsoft is now going to ship a full Linux kernel directly in Windows 10. And it's an in-house custom-built Linux kernel to underpin the newest version of the Windows subsystem for Linux. Well, that, I think, is a step in the right direction. Oh, there's the music. We got to take a break here for station identification, and we'll be right back.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And getting on back to the international news, this is just now breaking. Israeli newspaper Israel Hayom published an article which claims to be leaking details of Donald Trump's deal of the century. Apparently, there's copies of this document being circulated in Israel's foreign ministry, and an anonymous source leaked a copy to Middle East Eye. So maybe not, could be disinformation. But apparently, according to this document, which will have to be signed by Israel, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and Hamas, there's going to be a Palestinian state. They're going to call it New Palestine. It's going to be established on lands in the now occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The deal of the century is calling for elections to be held after a year and for Israel to start releasing Palestinian prisoners gradually over the course of 3 years. Now, New Palestine would have no military and would have to rely on Israel for protection. And unfortunately, there is a stick to go along with the carrot. If Hamas refuses this deal, then there will be a U.S.-backed Israeli invasion to eradicate Hamas. So apparently this deal will be backed and funded by Arab Gulf states like the Saudis and the UAE. As far as Jerusalem is concerned, it will remain undivided. And while Israel will maintain general control, responsibilities would be shared between Israel and New Palestine. So Palestinian residents in Jerusalem would be citizens of the Palestinian state, but the Israeli municipality of Jerusalem would remain in charge of matters related to land. And apparently Palestinians will be allowed to be educated in Israel. So not as bad and one-sided as had been leaked out. The other part of the deal, of course, is that the illegal settlements in the West Bank would formally be recognized as part of Israel. All right, well, good luck getting that one signed. But at least they understand what the Palestinians really want. Getting on back to the world of computers and getting on back to Microsoft. Do you remember years and years ago when they first came out with Plug and Play, where you could plug accessories in and out of the computer while it was running? And back then it was a big deal, because if you touched any cable on earlier computers, the computer would crash. And Bill Gates came on out at this big Microsoft launch to demonstrate Plug and Play, and he plugged something into somewhere and got the blue screen of death. And of course, everybody started laughing at that. Well, they've had kind of another little bit of a whoopsie. And it happened at the annual Build Developers Conference. And Microsoft was out there showing their HoloLens artificial reality demo. And they were going to use a simulation of the Apollo 11 mission. So space historian Andy Scheichen and John Knoll, Chief Creative Officer of Visual Effects from Industrial Light and Magic, stepped on the stage wearing HoloLens headsets. The simulation failed and ultimately left with palpable awkwardness after their demo failed to load. Let's see, what else were they looking at there? Apparently, artificially intelligent equipped Starbucks menus that show you what to order. A new election security software. Now, that would be a good thing here. Now, this is where computers have gone a little bit too far. Now, don't get me wrong. I've spent most of my life with computers, and I don't like them as much now as I did back when they were simple and elegant. But I do think the law of the hammer gets used a little too much. You see something, you say, oh, let's computerize it. Let's make it smart. And I think that's a bad way to go here. So, story coming out of Activist Post here. Huggies has now come out with a smart diaper. And they are already selling them in Korea and Japan. And they will soon be introduced here in the United States and in Mexico. And I guess the situation is that when baby goes poo, you'll be notified on your smartphone. Ignoring the fact that babies generally will start crying when they go poo, but that's another matter entirely. So apparently there's this new rush for smart personal care products. And of course, they're going to be more expensive. And there is the issue of, adding more wireless radiation to the environment. Now, 250 scientists have signed a petition that warns against numerous devices that emit radio frequency radiation, which is used in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Getting on back to Facebook. Facebook troubles continues to grow. The social network is under fire for how it collects user data. And, of course, goes back to the big one, Cambridge Analytica. And apparently, they've had a few of these come on up as well. Let's see. Let me do a click here. So you got Cambridge Analytica, and basically Zuckerberg and Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg remained silent before commenting on the scandal, and then admitting the scope of the problem was larger than it was once thought. Basically amounted to a personal data breach. And I'm one of those people, I don't like the fact that there are computers all over this planet who are holding details of my personal life. Like, I bought a jelly donut the other day. But apparently Facebook last September disclosed a breach that affected 50 million people. 2 weeks later, Facebook said the data of another 29 million people had been stolen. And for 14 million of those, the hackers also nabbed the birth date, hometown, and workplace, along with the most recent searches or places people had checked in to their social network. Now, here is a question. Okay, what do these hackers do with this data? I mean, it's vast, vast amounts of data. And yes, it can be used for marketing, telemarketing. But I'm wondering how much of this is wrapped up with our government's obsession to keep files on all of us. Remember a few years ago, Total Information Awareness, where they came on out and said, absolutely, that, yeah, we're going to maintain computer files on everybody. December 14th, Facebook disclosed another data breach. A bug on the social network exposed 6.8 million people's photos to outside developers. and the developers could see the photos if users uploaded them to the social network, even if they didn't actually post them. On December 18th, the Times reported on how much user data Facebook provided to some of its partners. Netflix, Spotify, and the Royal Bank of Canada could read users' private messages. Well, I guess at this point, there's no more privacy over at Facebook. Yahoo could read the real-time feeds of friends' posts. Apple could access the calendar entries, contact numbers of people who disabled all sharing in their accounts. Even the Times had access to a user's friends list as part of an article sharing app it shut down in 2011. Now, Facebook may have violated a 2011 agreement it had with the Federal Trade Commission to protect user data. And it basically amounted to a consent decree which barred Facebook from sharing your personal data with third parties without your explicit permission. Facebook, though, argues its data partnerships are exempt from the consent decree, but former FTC officials said they disagree with that. So, yeah, it's... Sometimes I wonder if maybe computers are less a blessing and more of a curse on our lives. I remember when computers first were coming on out, the electronic brains. I remember when personal computers first came out. Oh, it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your life convenient. You're going to be able to do all of this stuff. And it almost seems like we're in a world right now where the computers are using us. Now, Facebook, trying to make more sales, is hiring so-called influencers. These are people who have become stars on Instagram, and soon they're going to be able to sell products directly to users using the company's apps. And Facebook said this week the future of shopping would depend on content creators. So this is probably going to be upsetting to a lot of celebrities, the old kind of celebrities here. Over in Monsanto land, they're still going back and forth over that verdict in California that awarded a huge payout to a groundskeeper who contracted cancer from exposure to glyphosate. And the court said, yes, we're convinced glyphosate was the cause. They did this huge award. The court then revised it downward. And now Monsanto is back in court saying, well, this cancer victim shouldn't receive even that much money because he's going to die really soon anyway. And it's not like he needs the money or is going to use the money. I mean, talk about callous. Just absolutely callous. Okay, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Oh, we have a caller on the line. Sherry in Texas. Aloha, Sherry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. When I buy something in town, because I like to go in and just write a check for things, you know, I'm kind of old-fashioned.
Yes.
But they'll say, do you want an email about this? And I'll say, no, thank you. Or they'll say, do you want to be part of our, what is it when they take your information and you can, I don't know, you go on some kind of system. Oh, I can't think of it right now because I haven't had time to think. But I always say no because advertising, that's where they get permission for us to accept advertising from a company so that we can be tracked, I think. I mean, I'm not the first to think this, but whenever there's all kinds of, I know they say, do you want to be in our system? What is that thing when they say you want to be in our system?
Well, there are different names for it over at Safeway. You know, it's basically all about customer support, discount cards. Some cards don't have discounts on them, but it is about tracking all of your purchases and what you're buying.
That's right.
Yeah, and rebuilding customer loyalty.
Well, what I'm saying is that's where they get our permission to go in and snoop. It's snooped technology. It snoops.
Yes.
You know, yes. That's
well,
right. That's where they get it from, all these things.
it could very well be. I don't know the arrangements between these different companies because it's not one company that's doing this. I mean, there are literally hundreds of companies out there that are trying to data mine your data and turn it into something they can sell to marketing companies.
Everything I buy, they say, "Do you want to go? You want us to let you know when we have a sale again?" I always say no.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't mind having it, but I don't want to be. I don't want them tracking me. I feel like they're just following behind me. You know, well, she's going here today, she's going to be there tomorrow, and we'll pick up on what she buys, and then we'll see. You know, Snowden said something about this a long time ago. They can get very creative with our personal information, and I'm afraid we're at that point now where we have to think about this. So it's just that's my opinion.
Well, you know, I'm a private person, Claire's a private person, but then we're old people. And I don't like total strangers having that much information about my life, even if it's for a benign purpose. But as we've seen very often, the purposes are not benign. They are, in fact, in many cases nefarious, especially when you get into the government.
And they have operatives that go in and they find out who's on the no-call list. They pay them under the table. I've had to deal with this with my phone company, and good callers have called in to say, well, they told me, yes, they have operatives. They find out who's on the no-block list, so they can go in and reactivate their block. So people say, well, I paid for this no-block thing, or I was put on the list. How come I'm getting these calls again? Well, it's the little operatives that they pay on the side because it generates more income for the company to know what you're doing. And it's sad, but, you know, the more our eyes are open, the easier it'll be to get through all this.
Well, I don't know about operatives doing the unblock. I mean, telemarketers have the block list right there. It's not like they need to get anybody to get the names to know who's on it. But it is being evaded, and one of the ways it's being evaded is for these telemarketers to operate their call centers outside the United States of America, where there's no enforcement. We have a company right here in Honolulu. It's become notorious. They're running a call center out of Guam that calls people in the United States of America with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm just happy for all the callers that call in and say, this is what happened to me. We had a lot of that in the show today, and I'm just, you know, riveted. Dinner will be late. I can't miss this. This is great, Mike, and I like your show because it's so based on truth and the best that you're so. I'm going to get all smarmy about it now, but it's a great show. And
all right,
I've
well,
learned
thank
a
you
lot
very much. I appreciate your support. Okay, Sherry, we're going to let you go here. We're going to switch over to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. We were talking yesterday about war, and a caller called in and talked about the draft. I think that this next war we're going to have, I think it's, you know how like there's a big technological changes whenever there's a war? I think this war is going to be the war of the robot drones. They're going to not need people, and I think that's a very disturbing aspect of the technology that we have, the bioweaponry. I think it's going to become the opening salvo of the anti-human agenda, which you really find in a lot of the left-wing people now anyway.
Yes.
And I think when you do have a war, there's scientists that, because of this false religion of global warming, hate humanity. And they're kind of like the Nazis in that they'll gladly develop weapons that are unethical. Well, most weapons are, but I'm talking about maybe bioweapons, race-specific bioweapons, drones, just machines that just kill any type of living being. I really think that technologically they have a lot of things up their sleeve that we don't know about. And I've always said that the weaponry we see is 20, 30 years old. They have stuff that would probably blow our minds, and they only bring it out when there's a big war that they want to, let the other side taste a little bit of what we got. So, when I hear about the draft, I think that this next war is not going to be like normal war. I think humanity is going to, and both sides are not going to be considered, an asset, because the people that really, the establishment hates humanity anyway. They're going to look at a war as an opportunity to lower our population to manageable levels. And I think that that's the scary part of, well, all wars are scary, but I think we have to take that into consideration, that this is...
Yeah, I don't think it's so much about the elites hating humanity. It's about population management. Anyway, listen, Joe, got to take a break for commercials here. Thank you very much for the phone call, and we will be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. And I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we may not have had a lot of callers today, but we're definitely getting a lot of emails. And I'm looking at one here right now. I've had the same experience as Sherry, and I'm in Quebec, Canada. Often I get the request about my email address even before my purchase is rung up. I'm also private, and for small purchases, I prefer to pay cash. Yeah, definitely. It seems that there's almost a spiteful attitude when I say no to giving up my email address. The cashier holds up the bills I've handed over to the light in a very skeptical manner, and it irritates the heck out of me. For heaven's sake, if I had the ability to counterfeit, would I be shopping at a dollar store? Good point. Another one came on in basically talking about Wi-Fi radio, and this individual apparently went through the same thing as the other caller. When he turned off the radio, came back later, turned it on, need to reset the defaults. So apparently, yeah. Yeah, okay. So we make things too complicated. We really do. And, I'm not a tech dummy, but sometimes it just seems like we're into the gratuitous obfuscation of our products. Okay, somebody's just sent me a photo of the Radio Sputnik feed on the internet radio. Yeah, they made him look like the Joker. So, okay. Let's get back to the news here. We're talking about science and health issues here. This is a story that I think illustrates that our medical industrial complex is all about money. So down in Florida, there was this family, and they had a young son named Noah who was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in Tampa, Florida. And after some pressure from the doctors, they allowed him to undergo chemotherapy treatments. Now, after 2 treatments, Noah was declared to be cancer-free. Part of that may have been his parents' decision to supplement his conventional treatments with dietary, vitamin, and herbal interventions. Probably heard lately how apparently turmeric can be helpful in those situations. But according to Noah's mother, even though, because their son received this clean bill of health after 2 treatments, they decided to stop the chemotherapy treatments and just continue Noah on a natural treatment regimen for maintenance and prevention. But the All Children's Hospital wasn't okay with this. They called the Child Protective Services on the family to literally come and take this cancer-free child, take him back to the hospital, and submit him to unnecessary chemotherapy treatments. Now, that chemotherapy is not gentle. It's basically a controlled poisoning. And I don't know if it's a little bit better today than it was back when my mother passed away, but I saw what chemotherapy did to her. It just ripped her up. Okay, we got a caller on the line. Steve in Chicago. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha from Chicago, Michael. How you doing?
Doing fine.
Great. Thanks for taking my call. Big fan of the show. I wanted to talk a little bit about the consumer privacy issues that some of the callers were talking about earlier in the show.
Yes.
Just quickly, it's very frustrating, the buyer experience as a consumer. You go to these stores. Sometimes they, instead of just ringing up your stuff, they want to be salespeople.
Yes.
It could be very frustrating when you're spending your hard-earned money. But me and a couple buddies of mine and people that I know in my age group, we kind of have a little fun with it. When they ask for our phone number, we give them our area code, and we sing that song, 8675309.
Yep.
So, yeah, just to kind of enlighten everybody, it is frustrating, but you're trying to put in the keypad, what's your phone number to receive special offers and this. I just say 8675309, man.
Yeah. Well,
that's all I had to say, Mike. I'm a big fan of the show, and I listen every day, and, keep up the good work, man. We appreciate you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. Appreciate the call. Appreciate the support. Tyson Foods is recalling almost 12 million pounds of frozen chicken strips over concerns that the products may contain pieces of metal. Now, there is an upside to being tracked by a customer card. And we've gone through this with Sam's Club, where there'll be a product recall and we get notified by email because Sam's Club's computers know we bought that particular product. So there's a positive way of looking at all this data collection. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break, and we'll be right back. Join us on the air.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Quick little update on that school shooting in Colorado. 7 students were injured. 4 are listed as in fair condition. 1 is in serious condition. So we all hope that they're going to pull through, and that will be the end of the situation. All right, let's take a phone call from Chris in Florida. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, first, Michael, you mentioned chemotherapy while my call was being screened, and I didn't know what that was in the context of. That's one of the things I wanted to cover.
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing you. There's a helicopter right outside our house here. So we were talking about chemotherapy.
Let me try. That should be better.
Okay, you still there?
I am.
Okay, that sounds a lot better. So we were talking about chemotherapy, and it is very damaging to the body, but it's the orthodox cancer treatment, and it makes a lot of money.
Right. Well, there's a story that I couldn't find on your website. Just from a quick search just now, I wish I had more time to get more involved, but that's why I'm trying to call on folks to learn about and contact the All Children's Hospital here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and learn more about the situation here in my area. I live in Clearwater, just a few miles away, is St. Petersburg, where All Children's Hospital is.
Yes.
And
no, it's in Tampa.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. There's that one, but there's also maybe I'm a little bit. Like I said, I'm a little bit behind the curve on learning. There's so much I'm trying to learn here on this case with Noah, little 3-year-old, I believe, who has just been taken away from his parents because they do not want to give him chemotherapy now that he's cancer-free, and the media is very much maligning them. You can learn more about this at FloridaFreedomAlliance.org. That's FloridaFreedomAlliance.org, and just click on Noah's story at the top. And go to their Facebook page, and there's a lot more information. Court proceedings are ongoing. Today there's another court hearing. And essentially, like I said, he's been taken away from his parents. And last time I checked, which was about 2 days ago, he was given, his grandparents were given custody, fortunately, but he had been in the hospital, basically imprisoned, which
Yes.
is an injury in itself. He's very much depressed, of course, according to the mother, no doubt. No doubt that's true. You can also learn more about it at Florida Health Action Network, FloridaHealthActionNetwork.com, and their Facebook page. And also, Health Freedom Florida is another good resource on that issue, but more so those 3 resources I mentioned. The second topic, the main topic I was calling about, was to call Florida Governor DeSantis here to ask him to veto the vaccine registry bill, HB 213. And you can check out the analyses at those websites, FloridaFreedomAlliance.org, FloridaHealthActionNetwork.com, and HealthFreedomFlorida.org. And you can read a lot more about the implications, but essentially it contravenes HIPAA, the privacy, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. It contravenes Article 1, Section 23 of the Florida Constitution, having to do with privacy. Basically, you need to opt out of it in order to not be registered. When a patient opts out, all the information is to be removed from the registry. However, there is nothing preventing the information from being stored elsewhere outside of the registry. The amendments direct healthcare practitioners to provide notice and opt-out forms, although there is nothing holding them accountable if they do not. Healthcare practitioners are required to use FL Shots, that's the database, FL Shots. This will produce a chilling effect for doctors who issue medical exemptions under very limited conditions for fear that they will be targeted and also opens the door to legislation similar to California, which strips doctors of their discretion, confidence, and trust.
Yeah.
Or, their discretion in issuing medical exemptions that being jeopardized in California with their Senate Bill 276 right now, which is another big issue. The language in this HB 213 that we need to ask, call, contact, email Governor DeSantis to veto pertains to the uploading of information from existing systems needs to be vetted. Does an existing automated system apply potentially to payers, Medicaid, Medicare programs,
Yes.
insurance companies, and other databases with vaccination information? Would other parts of the patient's medical record be accessible and potentially stored? Will the information be sold? If so, what is being done to prevent this information from being stored by the health department? And of course, there's the issue of hacks and leaks, but those are just some of the main points, although there are many others that you can check out at this website.
Well, there's too much of our information is out there on too many different computers. I mean, it's like we don't even know where this stuff is. These are our medical records, and we have no idea where they are. They could be in another state for all that we know. And I really do think we're headed into this dystopian situation where there is no more personal privacy. We're being managed like farm animals, and being told what to eat, what not to eat, what medicines to take, what medicines not to take. And it really does feel like we're in this giant human ranch rather than a nation.
Right. Well, we do have a right to health care of our choice, we should add. My choices of health care, if they are infringed by somebody who is asking for universal access to the third leading cause of death, which are medical errors, according to Johns Hopkins University. And
True.
In that study, they said that, it might not be it might be higher than the third because they couldn't account for outpatient or at-home deaths, but heart disease and cancer are the first two, and the first two leading causes of death here in this country. And if those were better treated and prevented, well, these medical errors, if we consider the fact that they could have been better prevented and better treated, in most cases that is the case, then we could consider that medical mistakes are the first leading cause of death, possibly. I wouldn't be surprised. But, if somebody wants universal access to the third leading cause of death, they want me to help them to commit suicide. And at the same time, that impinges on my ability to afford even one supplement, one capsule of my supplement, I'm not going to do it. Anyhow, if folks, you want to check out this story.
Well, I did post the link to Noah's story just now, and if you could email me those other URLs, I'll take a look at them. But I'm glad to see so many people are starting to push back on this idea that the government gets to decide what medications you're forced to take. And the number of medications, of course, is always growing. The cost is going up. It's just another money-making scam. We don't know that these vaccines work or if they're even safe. In fact, I'm looking at this story right now that was posted by one of our members where apparently there was this flight attendant, 43-year-old. She's been in a coma for days due to encephalitis, which is a rare complication of both measles and measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. And she'd been vaccinated.
Yeah, they're the ones that are studying when it comes down to checking the strain of whenever there's an outbreak, it's always the vaccine strain. And, another interesting thing I'm seeing on the news on different broadcasts is that they're saying vaccines, and especially when they're covering the MMR vaccine being mandated in New York recently, in these emergency declarations to mandate the MMR vaccine, which is overkill when there's just a measles outbreak. The MMR is, of course, measles, mumps, rubella. Well, a common theme I'm seeing is that they're saying it's perfectly safe, quote unquote, perfectly safe.
Yes.
And saying it's, side effects, adverse reactions are relatively uncommon. But I'm just, I'm astounded that they won't accept feedback. Like there's a local station here, I'm not going to mention, give them time of day, but on their get on their Facebook feeds when they come on live and confront them. When I was on there and the newscaster said that it's perfectly safe, I gave the insert from Merck's own website, the
Yes.
MMR vaccine, and she was saying, "Oh, well, that's fake news, and that'll be deleted soon." And she wouldn't even mention the name, the word insert. She said, "Oh, well, that's what did I say?
Fake news."
I can't remember what I put in the chat room, but pardon me.
Yeah, and well, you need to understand these TV stations are all making a fortune in advertising revenues from the pharmaceutical corporations, and they're absolutely not going to speak out about problems with the products. That's just the economics of it. Back when we had diversity in media, you probably could have found some small independent station who would do that. But they're all, parts of these large conglomerates. They're all dependent on these ad budgets from big pharmaceutical. And that's why you never see any corporate media coverage of the harm that's being done by the measles vaccine. The measles vaccine is killing far more people than the measles has. Anyway, listen. Listen, Chris, thank you for the call. I got to let you go here, and we're going to switch over to Layla in Canada. Layla, aloha. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I don't know if I heard the gentleman correctly who was in the call just before me. First of all, with the greatest respect to those who are sick and seeking therapy for their illness, I don't mean to imply that they don't have a right to do that. But I thought I heard him say that people have a right to health care. I'd like to know where that is engraved in stone, where it was. There is no right. Even I personally have even questioned the concept of human rights. Take, for example, the idea that human rights are inalienable. If they were inalienable, then it would be because they were within our DNA and therefore they could not be separated from us. However, since most of the world does not have so-called human rights, clearly they are alienable and they are optional depending upon who controls the levers of power wherever an individual exists.
Well, we're certainly seeing that today here in the United States between the attacks on the Second Amendment and all these social media corporations just taking it on themselves to filter out content that doesn't line up with their personal political viewpoints, which tend to be heavily liberal.
And I have to say I resent that with the deepest disappointment because so many of the wonderful, informational, credible websites and YouTube videos that used to be online have all been removed.
Yes.
And those, there are so many that were produced by credible people who had done some legitimate research and created credible documentaries that I used to enjoy. Now I can't even find them. But back to the concept of rights and power. The first person that I know of within human history who decided to give some rights to the weaker people that were white slaves that had been captured, it was written in the Code of Hammurabi of Babylon. But ever since then, rights have always been optional depending upon who's in control. Now, today, somehow the United Nations or those who profess to be or present themselves as liberals or humanitarians or progressives or compassionate, those are telling us now that we have all kinds of rights, such as the right to take money from the wealthy, and the wealthy are now people who can afford to pay taxes, who are taxed unduly, and thus those taxpayers, pay for the health care that others think they have a right to access, even if they've never lived in the country before they illegally migrated into the country, and then deprive the legitimate users of the healthcare system from the services that their taxes paid for and built, including all of the other welfare benefits that previous generations invested in. It's like when you invest in a stock. you have the right as the investor to reap the dividend benefits. Now, the governments who are trying to buy votes with our dividends are letting in migrants that they know are going to vote for them because they become the ones who give the health care, who tell them they have a right to health care. They have a right to equal outcomes, not equal opportunity as it used to be. Everybody had the right to work equally and to struggle towards increasing their social status. Now you're automatically elevated to the top of the totem pole, if I may use what is now an unacceptable, perhaps, caricature of the Aboriginal peoples. There was always a hierarchy all throughout human history. And there seems to be something that's built into humanity that probably is necessary, because if we didn't cooperate and follow a leader, we would never have been able to survive to this long and have such a burgeoning population. So we see people that we think are idiotic and believe in unrealistic images. Atheists would say that it's a fairy tale to believe in God and Jesus. And I think there might be some legitimacy to that, in the sense that if you read the New Testament, who is blamed for the death of Jesus? It is the people who lived in the province of Judah that was being administered by the Romans, and Pontius Pilate, the Roman, is made to look like a victim. There are those who say that the Romans actually wrote the New Testament in order to bring people in line, in order to make their
That was at the Council of Nicaea. Yeah, I mean, we're running out of time here, Layla, but basically, Jesus made a play for the throne of Judea, and the Romans crucified him for treason. Anyway, Layla, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a short commercial break. Back with the last segment of today's program after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Final segment of our program today. Over in China, well, actually, it's gotten bigger. There is a problem with this virus that is just racing through the pig population. It started last August with this farm with fewer than 400 hogs on the outskirts of Shenyang. Was found to harbor African swine fever. This is the first ever occurrence of this contagious viral disease in the country, with half the world's pigs. Now, 47 head had died, triggering emergency measures, mass culling, a blockade to stop the transportation of livestock. Within days, a government notice proclaimed the outbreak effectively controlled. Well, that's what the government was saying. By then, the disease had literally spread across hundreds of miles, sickened animals, contaminated food in dirt and dust on truck tires and clothing. 9 months later, the contagion has spread nationwide, crossed borders into Mongolia, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and of course, has basically destroyed their pork industry. They're actually starting to call it the pig's version of Ebola. Now, when you go down to the beach, we have a lot of beaches around here. When you go down to the beach, you go out in the sun, you put on sunscreen. Probably be better to put on some articles of clothing, but sunscreen is what gets pushed. Sunscreen is what gets advertised here. And it turns out, according to this article in Government Slaves, there's a new study that says that sunscreen reaches your bloodstream a day after you use it. It doesn't just stay on the surface of your skin. It actually soaks on in. And you ought to be a little bit concerned about that, because being deemed in the same category as cosmetics, sunscreen isn't subject to the same kind of safety checks. Oh, it's just on the surface, it'll wash right off. That's the reason that the cosmetics industry gets a pass on FDA and USDA checks of the chemicals they use. But yeah, apparently that is a big problem. Over at Yellowstone, there's been an earthquake swarm that hits the caldera. Experts are saying no, there's no big eruption coming, but it's upsetting a few people. And finally, there has been an effort to clean up the top of Mount Everest. And so far, the volunteers have brought down 3 tons of rubbish from Mount Everest. And it's climbing gear, abandoned oxygen tanks, and even corpses. And I kind of hope that one of those corpses is going to be Andrew Sandy Irvine, who was the guy with Robert Mallory that may have actually reached the top of Everest first and then died on the way back down. And by the way, that is an aspect of mountain climbing. When you're on your way back down, gravity is dragging you along and you're tired from the trip up. That's actually when most mountain climbing accidents happen. So there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know. When you see something in the media that's blatantly false, make a noise about it. Make a stink. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.